Hey, folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Tornado Tony Penicow.
And Psychic Tom Paget with his crystal ball polished and ready to go.
So, Rich, the first thing I want to say was that weather in your area last week was not my fault.
It was not tornado related. It was tornado adjacent, maybe.
Yeah. We had, just like you were saying, that microburst, like they're short and extremely intense. And I know we had one, I was saying before we got on the air, outside in Philly a couple weeks ago. So if you have Philly on the map and you look at Philly, and then if you're looking for where I live, I'm a little bit up north and west of the city. So you would look towards like Lansdale, not Lansdowne, Lansdale, which is going up northeast. And then that's where you'd get off and you'd go a little bit west to go to me. Then if you keep going up, you would go to Quakertown and Allentown. So I was in Quakertown about, 15 miles from my house, not that far. And I know we were going to have some weather that day. That's why I had skipped going to the one game because I figured the weather was going to be bad. And I'm driving home and shower. I don't think nothing of it, just a rain shower. I get home, I turn on the news, and in the city, it had hit hard and intense where, like, they showed it whipping through, like, between buildings where people thought it was a tornado going through the buildings. The wind was whipping so hard, you saw trees going down. The one turnpike highway had flooded where, like, it was up to, like, basically halfway up the tires of the cars. And then even my friend who lives 20 minutes from me, he's like, man, we got it wicked. I'm like, you did? I'm like, bro, you live 20 minutes from me. I barely saw a shower.
Yeah.
And but when they hit, man, they hit.
Yeah, and here they have the dumbest power setup. They have like all the transformers and everything are in like the lowest part of town that always gets flooded in these big storms. And on top of that, they had a lot of trees go over. So it was such a clusterfuck. I hear about it like at noon that the power went out up here, and I'm in New Hampshire, like 200 miles away. And fucking, I hear it. Okay, power went out, and then on the way home, I expected like a lot of roadblocks or whatever, but there was only one big problem, and it was right over by the power station, which usually gets flooded. But instead of a flood, I think it was some trees that fell on some shit there. So anyway, there's like a helicopter hovering like 30 feet off the ground over all this shit. And I just could take my turn right, or I could go through the roadblock and see what was going on. So I was like, I'm just going home. Took my right and went home. And we didn't get power back on until like early the next morning. And there was a time last year they had the floods, and it was like a week before they got power back on. Because they decided one day, yeah, let's build the underground power system where it floods all the time. Stupidest thing ever. But yeah, it basically was so bad. There's so many trees down. When they turned the power back on, there was like a flurry of activity on the scanner. My girlfriend told me she was listening, and that set off a bunch of fires because they didn't clean up the lines that were down. They reactivated them, sparked some fires, so those had to be put out. Nothing big. Yeah, that's the weather report. But we got plenty of combat sports to talk about. We got to go all the way back to a couple weeks ago, since that interrupted our ability to record last week. And we got to go back to UFC 329, the return of the Mac. We got 69 seconds of Conor McGregor in action. And that was it. I actually, it's a good thing that we had the week break, because I actually, believe it or not, guys, I went nuts. I went to my AI setup and I just worked my ass off to try to find the contact number for Conor McGregor. And I finally got a hold of him. I got like a 30-second clip of his response about the fight.
Well, now, lads, we've had better days. Fair play to me opponent. It was a shocking performance from me, and we've got no excuses. We owe everyone an apology for that one. I'll tell you something. We seen a better fight out of two woodpeckers in my backyard the other day. They showed more heart than we did tonight. We'll dust ourselves off, get back to work, come back strong. It's the game.
That is actually Chat GPT Conor McGregor right there. But it's a true story, actually. He lasted just the 69 seconds, got kicked in the leg a couple times and was done. And it was started by his attempts to throw a kick, apparently. But there's all kinds of conspiracy theories. He tripped putting his shoes on or taking his shoes off to get in the cage. And, they did show a bunch of footage of him trying to throw that same kick in the dressing room. But you got to wonder if there was some kind of thing beforehand. There was another bit of conspiracy stuff about his after party getting canceled before the fight even started. Just weird stuff. Doesn't make sense. And of course, everybody vouches for Conor and says, hey, he's not that kind of guy who would go into a fight with an injury like that. I mean, he pulled out the other fight with a broken toe with Chandler. So you got to believe if it was something serious, he knew about it, he would pull out. But I mean, he did not want that reputation either. He was kind of stuck having to do it. And it was a big payday for him, even though he's, worth so many millions. It was definitely a big payday, an opportunity for all kinds of stuff. And his body kind of shit the bed basically on him. And the stuff that he used to do, the dynamic spins and all that shit, he just can't do them anymore. I mean, he's just not physically set up for it. And when you try to return after 5 years and you're still trying to be that dynamic, crazy dude that you were when you started the sport, it's bound to backfire. I did a little skateboarding about 10 years ago, but if I tried now, I'd probably break a bunch of bones myself. But yeah, Conor basically, like everybody kind of expected after a 5-year layoff, just couldn't put it together. Holloway was very patient. Just sat there and waited for him to come to him, and it worked out for him. He ended up winning pretty handily, and Conor tore his
Rich,
ace.
what did you think the second time he fell? What were you thinking?
Oh, I was definitely thinking it was over, and I had some good parlays going where, it was Holloway by knockout. Never even imagined him winning by decision.
Well, I had some crazy idea after the second one because it almost looked like is he doing this on purpose to have Max get on the ground and try to grapple with Max? I know that was just, but that thought faded away pretty quick. And good sportsmanship with Max, how he looked at the referee and said, "Hey, come on, what are you waiting on? This guy can't fight."
That trip with the shoes was also combined with the bags under his eyes. More so than made me think he was injured, it made me think he was convinced he was going to lose no matter what, whether he was injured or not. He just knew going into that cage he was going to lose that fight. And all the trash talk and all that shit was just for show. Like, I think he just knew this was not going to be his fucking night for whatever reason. And, the funny thing is that simulation of his voice there I just created earlier today. We actually, Shelly and I saw two woodpeckers just about fucking kill each other the other day in our backyard. There were 3 of them all together, but 2 of them were fighting, obviously over territory or something. A girl, maybe the third one was a girl, who knows? But they beat the fuck out of each other. Never seen, other than 2 roosters, I've never seen 2 birds do this in the wild. Fucking flying into each other and wrestling in the air, dropping onto the roof, sliding onto the ground. Like they were out to kill each other. And then, there's like these big pine trees on both sides of the road. And by the end of it, one bird was like limping up one of the pine trees. And the other bird was like way off on the other side of the road in another pine tree. And they were both like squawking the same word, whatever it was. Probably like the bird equivalent of "fuck you." But
what do you think of the theory that Conor was just so amped up after being out of the cage for 5 years, and it was just a giant adrenaline explosion and an adrenaline jump? Not that he just lost his game plan.
Speculative things going around. There was a very quick report that went out that said, cocaine can make bones brittle, and weaken joints and all that kind of stuff. So that was suggested as a possibility of why that happened. But I think it was just, not being in full-time training for years at a time. Like, I don't think, even when he was thinking about coming back for Chandler, I don't think he was in camp for like 6 months.
Yeah, and his lifestyle was pretty, as we know, I mean, it wasn't just the other, like the growth hormone and the testosterone and the steroids, it was also other drugs. So, yeah, and I mean, if you're going to be a pro fighter, you can't live like a rock star.
No. So he's got one more fight on his contract, I believe. And then he can go into bare knuckle if he wants. And that's going to be part of, I guess, a little bit later. But we could mention it now. Joe Lazon is going to be bare knuckle boxing at Fenway. And BKFC comes to Fenway at the end of August. So that makes me think I've got to go fucking get tickets immediately. But Conor is the part owner of that same league. And who knows? He might end up there as a fighter if the next fight doesn't go his way. But we're looking at probably next September, maybe a little bit earlier if he really fast tracks it. But he's supposedly not walking with a cane already. He's walking around with it. So if he rehabs it really well and gives it another couple months to get back to snuff, I think he'll be able to do something next year. But I just don't think they should be putting him up against any kind of top fighter for him to come back. If they want to really sign him to another contract at some point, or really, get serious about bringing him back if he looks any good in his next fight, you got to put him against somebody that he can definitely beat. I hate to say it, but you got to like get Czech Congo out of retirement or something.
Well, but remember, the problem is, it's the same thing in boxing. When you have that title, former world champ, it's hard to get cheap dates.
We'll see. Maybe Jake Paul. We'll get Jake Paul against him next boxing. I don't know. But it looked ugly. It looked really ugly. And then the co-main event was a shocker. Benoit St. Denis gets submitted in the first round by a combination choke. They ended up calling it a Peruvian necktie, but I think it was a combination of that and like a Bravo choke or something. And Patty just like put his legs around Benoit St. Denis's shoulder area and locked in this choke and made sure he couldn't get out of it, because St. Denis is pretty decent with the jiu-jitsu too, but it just lasted 52 seconds. Pimblett won, and that result paid off pretty good to me. I ended up winning a couple good bets. Was last week. But it was a pretty easy card to handicap in the long run when I looked at it. I mean, I kind of was embarrassed that I had any hedging on the Max Holloway and Conor McGregor fight. I should have been across the board Holloway, but I couldn't help it. At the end of the day, I ended up going in there and deciding, I got to throw a little bit of money at Conor and see what happens. I didn't put a lot of bets out on him, but just enough. And I was like, yeah, I should have known. Should have known not even to give him a chance. But, it was a pretty decent call. Especially, there's pretty good positive odds for Holloway by knockout, too. Anyway. Also, Mario Batista versus Corey Sandhagen. The more I kept thinking about Batista's recent performances, I said I gotta put something on him too. That helped out. That was a big upset. Sandhagen might have injured his knee too, not as bad as Conor, but he actually finished the fight with it.
Yeah, those leg kicks were brutal leg kicks. Ooh.
And Brandon Royval was really the upset of the night over Loney Kavanaugh. And I kind of knew that experience factor was gonna be a huge advantage for him. I didn't see the submission, but I thought maybe by decision he would win. So I had a couple parlays with him in it. And then not the upset of the night necessarily, but the comeback of the night goes to King Green. He was getting his shit kicked out of him by Terrence McKinney in the first round. And he ended up hitting Green, came back and ended up hitting McKinney with a rib shot, rabbit punch, and finished off the whole fight in the last second of the first round. And McKinney went down.
That was a fight. That was anyone that complains about that, get out.
Yeah,
do something else. Watch soccer.
They were recapping it themselves out on the street after the fight, and it got recorded. And they'll always remember that. And Terrence had no problem with the stoppage, obviously. Then Robert Whittaker, Joe Rogan called him fat. He got a little upset about it, but Joe Rogan was calling him soft at his new weight here, light heavyweight. He moved up.
Got it done.
Yeah, he definitely put the pieces together. He started a little slow, but then he really just started using his boxing, and Nikita Krylov ended up submitting the punches, basically. He waved it off after getting his jaw broken. They just called it an injury, but it was pretty much broken. I mean, he knew it immediately. I think it was just a straight right hand, too, that did it. Nothing fancy. But yeah, that was in the third round. Stopped that fight. That was a good bet. Gable Stevenson also by knockout over Alicia Ellison. I think everybody and their mother expected that. That was knees and punches, 2 minutes and 31 seconds into that fight. Adrian Yanez only took 2 minutes and 47 seconds to get rid of Cody Garbrandt by TKO from punches. And that was part of a big streak. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 fights in a row ending by knockout on this card here. Before that, Luke Riley TKO'd Kai Kamaka the third. That was competitive up until the punch that rang Kamaka's bell. Knees and punches there. Finished that one 3 minutes and 3 seconds into the fight. And then Kong Wang ended up beating Tracy Cortez by unanimous decision. Damian Tinas beating Cesar Almeida by first round knockout, 4 minutes and 44 seconds into their fight. That was expected. Fareed Basharat beating John Garza by unanimous decision in the third round. And Ryan Gandra beating Zachary Reese by TKO in the very first round. In the second fight of the night, just 1 minute and 15 seconds into that contest. And Alessandro Costa beating Cody Durden by rear naked choke, 2 minutes and 19 seconds into their bout. And yeah, it was a really decent card. I enjoyed watching it. I didn't see every single fight, but we saw just about all of them. I think I missed like 3. But yeah, That's good stuff. Yeah, there it is. So I had really good luck on that card. My first big payout was a 5-pick parlay at plus 1167 odds. I had Luke Riley by TKO, Kong Wang money line, Cody Garbrandt, and Adrian Yanez. Just exact method of victory was TKO. KO would be cool. I Gable on the money line at negative 1200 just to have him. And then Robert Whittaker on the money line. And that was $5 turned into 63 and change. So that was good enough. But then I had a threefer. And they call this the cycle when you have a decision pick, a submission pick, and a KO pick. And that's it. So I had some pretty long odds. I had Pimblett by submission. That was plus 550 before the fight. And so that was considered crazy by most people. Mario Batista by decision, plus 165. And Max Holloway by knockout, which was a given to me. That was minus 135. And $5 turned into 150. Minus 8 cents. So that's really the highlight of the three. And then the third one I had was Max Holloway by knockout, Paddy Pimblett by TKO or submission, and Mario Batista by TKO or decision. And that was another almost 70 bucks for those two. So yeah, that was most of those were kind of late on the card too, because there was a couple hiccups early on I didn't expect. But we're coming together. And then last week really picked them off. We got into the Kamaru Usman Dricus Duplessis fight, and I had a bet that would have paid off 400 and change if Usman won. And I had an opportunity to cash out for $139 before the fight started. And once the fight starts, you can't cash out. Like, they don't offer it. So I was kicking myself. Fight ended. Usman, I thought he could pull it off, but I thought there was a possibility of actually taking $139. I won a couple smaller bets, which wasn't feeling good about that decision. Should have taken it. And new bet with it. Yeah. $400. Anyway. So Conor McGregor, yeah, he's probably not coming back for a while. I think he is going to definitely fight that one fight on his contract just to be a free agent. I don't think he's going to really want to re-sign with the UFC unless he, gets a second shot at life, like he goes down and does ayahuasca, like what's his name? The quarterback, Aaron Rodgers.
Oh yeah.
He's an alternative future for himself in MMA, then maybe he'll do that. But I think he's one and done with the UFC, and I think they're going to be very careful about who they match him up with against next. Because you just can't have him walk away from the organization with a loss. 3-0. Especially not an injury that causes the loss. But anyway. I kind of expected it. We talked about it on the show, but I, at the same time, was kind of caught up in the hype, and I was expecting him to do a lot better than that. I thought he would at least compete. Right. I'll tell you, we talked about that Graham Plattner a few weeks ago on the show, and now he is gone from the race. He's out. Conor McGregor actually reminded me a lot of Graham Plattner when he came out to the cage. That's how old he looks. He looks like an old congressional candidate from Maine.
Yeah.
With a mohawk. So maybe that's what Graham had to do. He had to quit the race. He had to change his whole body, get 1 million new tattoos to replace the Nazi tattoo, and go out there and fight. He had a body double. No. But there is a body double fighting this weekend. It's Anthony Smith's stunt double. And he's in the main event on short notice. Bogdan Guskov. And this one's in Abu Dhabi. And I had got a hold of one of the most interesting statistics you will ever hear about UFC and MMA. The last 6 UFC cards, guess what the record was for guys with names that end in V?
That's a tough one.
22.
I'll tell you, there was 26 of them, 26 fights. So
4-22.
Nope. 25-1.
Wow. Well, I was in the wrong direction.
25-1. Only once has a guy with a V as the last letter of his name lost the fight. So we have a shitload of V as the last letter of the name in this Abu Dhabi card. And I had one YouTube guy I watched actually say outright, he didn't say they were fixed, but he said these fights are all set up for the Muslim guys to win. It's in Abu Dhabi, it's in the Emirates. So we got Magomed Ankalaev. He was supposed to face somebody completely different. He's going to get Bogdan Guskov, who has, some degree of power. He's capable of winning this fight, but Ankalaev has just fought so much better competition. He's a very heavy favorite on the money line. And Guskov, the biggest drawback against him is he's fighting on such short notice. But he not only has power, he's only had 3 wins that didn't come by knockout, and those are all submissions. So he could finish this fight too. He does come off a draw with Jan Blachowicz, but before that he was on a finish streak where most of them were knockouts early in the fight, and one was a submission. So he's capable of getting this win, and he probably knows the value of beating a guy like Ankalaev. But Ankalaev is just so technical and just got such great ability. Alex Pereira kind of got the cheat code to beat him in his second rematch with him. But he's on a different level completely in the sport, especially with all his kickboxing experience. But yeah, I don't see Ankalaev running away with it. I think Guskov does have a puncher's chance, way more than a puncher's chance. He could really do the walk-off knockout and be done with it. But I do think Ankalaev by money line is probably the safest way to go. I do not count Guskov out at all. And Ankalaev can be pretty boring sometimes. We also have Steve Erceg and Ramazanbek Temirov, V-name. So we got V-name in the main event. Last letter is V. And we got V-name in the co-main event. And this is another guy that is a knockout fiend. Temirov. He is 19-3 to Steve's 14-4, and he's got 11 knockouts, 7 decisions. So I think the best bet there is Temirov by knockout or Erceg by decision. So you got the best of both worlds. If Erceg's going to win, he's going to have to fight a tactical fight, probably run away from Temirov's power most of the fight and use his range. And then we got a guy that is just ruining people. And if you see his Sherdog picture, you might think, does Tom Brady have a German cousin on steroids? That's what he looks like. He looks like Cro-Magnon Tom Brady here against Wellington Turman, who has been out almost as long as Conor McGregor, 3 years. And this Dula not only finishes people, he finishes them early. He has a streak going back to 2022 of either submitting or knocking people out all in the first round. One guy was in the last second of the first round, but everybody else was pretty much inside 3 minutes in streak. And he pretty much has gone. He has gone his entire career except his very first fight in the pros. He's gone through. Has not gone the distance ever. Went into the second round just once in those wins, and then ended up losing his only fight in his first fight of his career by unanimous decision. So, well, crazy fight record. But 7 knockouts, 5 submissions, and they call him. So, fight and finish is probably the best bet. And we've got James Respecki. He is 10-0, fighting Magomed Zainukov, who is 8-0. And right now, I think DraftKings has Zainukov as the favorite, but I actually looked at Respecki's record. I would definitely have to put something on him by TKO or submission. He's a Polish guy. He got a lot of power, a lot of knockouts himself, and if there's going to be an upset on this card, and if a guy with a last V as the last letter in his name is going to lose, I think it's going to be Zainukov. He's very fresh. He hasn't really fought anybody huge, any big names or anything like that, so I think he has a chance to lose this one on home turf, basically. And then Rizvan Kuniev, 13-3-1 against Terrell Fortune, 18-3. And almost everybody is picking Kuniev to win this fight. I don't think that's the smartest thing to do. I got to throw something at Fortune. And he's a heavy underdog, but he has only lost in those 3 fights to pretty big names in the sport with a lot more experience than Kuniev. And he had some experience in Bellator before the UFC, so I like Fortune in that one. I'm not necessarily going to pick him in every parlay, but I also like just the decision. I mean, the knockout result bet, flat result. You don't have to pick the winner. You just pick how it's going to end. And then Abu Bakar Ragayev, 24-4 versus Saeed Izagaki. I definitely butchered that. He's 22-3. They have 24-4 at welterweight. And then we got Walter Walker, 15-1, facing Thomas Peterson, who's 11-4 at heavyweight. And Walker is one of those guys who just goes to the foot. They call him the foot hunter. He does heel hook submissions and ends up with people. He's got 4 in a row. He's 15-1 at heavyweight, facing Thomas Peterson. I laughed my ass off. One of the YouTube predictor channels called him the Thomas Peter Griffin Peter. He looks like Peter Griffin from Family Guy. Anyway, Peterson's 11-4. I also think he looks like the Stingray character from Cobra Kai. But yeah, he is a very good wrestler. So if he's going to win this, he's got to avoid the heel hook and wrestle. Good luck with that. And Walker also has just as many knockouts as he does submissions. So I would hedge that bet on the submission and just go TKO and submission if you can find it. I think that's the best bet for Walker. If you like him, Peterson probably decision if he wins. But that'll be a good fight. And we got Dustin Jacoby welcoming a new fighter to the UFC. Jacoby 22-9-1, coming off 3 straight knockout wins. He's facing Muhammad Saeed, who's 9-0. Obviously, with a name like Muhammad, he's going to have the Abu Dhabi fans cheering for him. But I think Jacoby ends up winning that one by knockout. I like also just a flat knockout as a result bet for that one, just in case the other guy wins. And then we got a real veteran of the sport who has been getting kind of shellacked lately, Santiago Ponzinibbio. He is 30-9, facing Sam Patterson, who is 14-3-1. But everybody likes Patterson. They don't really think the experience is going to matter. A lot of people are picking Patterson by knockout. I don't know. I always hate those fights where everybody's going for one guy, and the guy that's everybody's rooting against basically is probably leaving the UFC if he loses. So you never know what kind of motivation that's going to give him. And then speaking of leaving the UFC, Ismail Bonfim will probably be thrown out if he loses his next fight here against Axel Sola. 11-1-1, coming off an absolute war in one of his first UFC fights with Mason Jones. He's facing Ismail Bonfim, who has generated a reputation for quitting in fights. But that should be a good lightweight scrap. A lot of people picking Axel Sola by TKO. He's a product of the Contender Series. And I think he wins that fight. And Bredson Ribeiro, 17-10 at light heavyweight, facing Magomed Tushalov, who is 5-0 at light heavyweight. And a lot of people, even though he's new, like Tushalov to finish this fight. I don't know. We'll just have to see what Bredson has left in the tank here. And then 11-0, Narulo Aliev and Mike Davis, who's 12-3, are scrapping at lightweight in the second fight of the night. Aliev, very much the favorite, but Davis has also been picked by some of the experts to pull off the upset, so he might be a live dog. And then Cody Gibson versus Abdul Hussein. Hussein's like a -500 favorite. He's 15-2. He's obviously got the better winning record. Facing Cody Gibson, who's 21-12. He's got a lot of heart, but the talent sometimes falls short with him. Just ends up, starting strong and then gets taken over. So anyway, that's Saturday morning, July 25th in the Emirates. It's going to be starting at 9 a.m. Eastern here for us on the East Coast. And there's also a Bellator event in Washington, D.C., not at the White House, but in Washington, D.C. on Saturday night. And that one actually doesn't have that many fights, just 8 fights. Thad Jean at welterweight in the main event, 11-0, facing Ernesto Rodriguez, who's 11-1. Tyson Pedro, 10-6 at light heavyweight, facing Rafael Xavier, 14-9. Sullivan Colley, 8-2. At light heavy again, facing Rasul Magomedov, the V name. He is 9-0, looking for win number 10. We got Eliezer Kubanza, 8-1 at welterweight, facing Chris Mixon, who's 7-3. Bryce Meredith, 7-1 at 140-pound catchweight, facing Michael Sear, who's 8-2. Then we got another 140 catchweight, Brandon Davis, 15-12, facing Nkosi Ndidi, who is 12-3. And this sounds like a better name for a baseball player, but this guy's fighting. His name is Chad Yard. Fighting Cody Bradford, 5-4 at light heavyweight. And the first fight of the night, Jacob Pace, 1-0, facing Noah Hermosillo, who's making his pro debut. And that is it. We do have to still go back over the fight from last week from Oklahoma. But we're going to get into some boxing first. We're going to mix it up here. We also have to have a law and order session tonight because there's some serious law issues we're going to talk about. Crazy stuff. Anyway. As far as the results go, let's see our results. We didn't even actually have a whole shit ton of big fights last week. But there were some title fights in Tokyo Monday. We had Shokichi Iwata improved to 17-2 with a 11th round knockout of Eric Badillo, who was undefeated, but now he's 19-1. And that was for the WBC World Light Flyweight title. We also had Kenshiro Taraji improved to 26-2 with a unanimous decision over Israel Gonzalez. That one was the vacant WBO World Super Flyweight title. Gonzalez falls to 32-6-2. And then No title on the line, but Riku Masuda won a split decision to go to 11-1, beating Daigo Higa, who falls to 21-4-3 at bantamweight there. And fights. Had some fights in Dubai last week. So the question mark on that thing. Boxer. Over across the pond, we had Harlem Eubank losing in unanimous decision to David Papeau for the vacant IBF International welterweight title. Eubank now 22-2. Papeau 31-1-1 at welterweight. And we had TKO in another fight on that card. Kieran Malloy proving to 15-0, taking out Sean Noakes in the 8th round, who was undefeated. He was 12-1. That was for the IBF European welterweight title. And Diego Pacheco proving to 26-0 with an 11th round knockout of Emmanuel Alim on Saturday, the 18th there. And Alim falls to 22-5-3. That was for the WBC Silver Super Middleweight title and the WBO International Super Middleweight title. And we also had another knockout earlier, 2nd round. Albert Gonzalez improving to 18-0, beating Aaron Lopez Alameda, who falls to 31-4, and that was for the vacant NABF featherweight title. That's pretty much the best stuff on that card. San Bernardino, California, we had another fighter going in undefeated, 24-0-1, lost by disqualification, Ruben Eduardo Aguiar. Don't see that a lot in boxing. Very first round, doesn't say the reason, but lost by disqualification in the first round against Trayshawn Wiggins, who improves to 18-5-4 for the WBC Latino welterweight title. That's odd. I'll have to look that up. Another fight on that card. Charlie Suarez improved to 19-0, actually knocking out his opponent in the first round, Manuel Avila. Drops to 26-3 with one draw. That one was for the WBO International Super Featherweight title. And if that's not enough title fights, we also had the WBC Female World Super Flyweight title. Maria Ruiz improved to 19-1-1 over Ginny Fox. FUCHS. I don't know if it's like a hard K, but that's funny. If it is, she's 4-0. Well, was 4-0. Now she's 4-1. That was for the BC World Super Flyweight title. And Joshua Kevin Anton won a unanimous decision. He's 14-0 now, beating Vladimir Hernandez, who falls to 17-8. And that one was for the WBC Continental America Super Welterweight title. And that was it. Going back to last Friday, we had a WBC International Light Heavyweight title. Bodian Hasso improved to 24-0 in that one, just taking 2 rounds to TKO David Kirkman, who falls to 32-5 there. That was over in Germany. And that's about the amateur stuff. It's Wednesday. So that was the last week. We're not going to go back 2 weeks, of course. But we will talk about the upcoming schedule here. And I think it was before we got on the call, but talking earlier about the bare knuckle fight coming to Fenway Park August 29th. And I think they just set up Bill Razan on the card. We don't know who he's going to be fighting yet, I don't think, but he has decided to go into bare knuckle. He's going to be coming to Fenway Park on August 29th, so I'm going to try to get there. I don't know if there's anything in bare knuckle this week, but we get some good fights to talk about. Find some the zone card here in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, at the Jeddah Superdome. Most chic thing. We got Anthony Joshua. I didn't realize he was fighting this weekend. Looking for a big win number 30. He's 29-4, obviously facing the first opponent since his brutal car crash there that took a couple of his trainers.
Yeah.
So we don't see him in the ring again at all. But he's obviously fine-tuning his approach to go against Tyson Fury. He's fighting a guy named Christian with a K Prenga, who is 20-1 at heavyweight. Probably has no chance in hell of winning this fight, but you never know when the next Buster Douglas is coming along, right?
True.
That would derail a lot of plans, I think, if Christian.
Yeah, it sure would. Wow.
I don't even know what the odds are. I haven't looked. I didn't even actually realize that Joshua was fighting this weekend, but probably a good bet to just go Joshua by knockout. He is looking good lately. And we all saw what he did to Jake Paul's jaw. Even though he should have done it in round 1. Yeah, he took him out pretty good. Not that that's a good standard for the super competitive not pros. But yeah, he's ranked number 7. Prenga is number 35. What's your prediction for that fight, Tony? First round knockout?
No, I'm not going to say first round. Well, first of all, Joshua's not a first round kind of guy. I don't think he ever has been. It's a fight card that these afternoon ones in Saudi they don't catch me because I'm always away in the afternoon. Like I like to sit down with a good night. I mean, hey, I understand. Hey, it's great. You can be in the afternoon, watch the fights, then have the whole night ahead of you. I kind of like the fight to end my night. So let me see what I got here. I just want to see what I see on this guy. So you figure, now Joshua's been stopped twice, and his last fight was that, whatever you want to call it, against Jake Paul. Let's see. He's got a guy he's fighting is 20-1, and I was looking at his stuff. Okay. I don't know. I don't recognize anybody on. Well, he has a win over my friend Joey DeWaco, TKO, in the 5th round a couple years ago. I remember that. I remember that. So you figure, this is a big dude. You give him that 260 pounds, and he's 6'5". So, but 20-1, and like I said, I only recognize one guy on his record. Did fight in Philly a couple years ago, 2nd round TKO against a journeyman Juan Torres. But for the most part, you look at the guys who's fighting, mostly journeyman. Joey DeWaco was 28-12. Juan Torres is 11-7. Willie Jake Jr. 11-6. Joe Jones, his last fight in February, 16-14. Has he fought a guy? I think he's fought one guy with a 0 after his name, and that was his 6th pro fight when the guy was 2-0-2. So, always got a puncher's chance. You always got to say that. He's won all of his wins are by knockout, and Joshua's not the he would never get mistaken for George Chuvalo out there. But I think, Josh was going to box the first 4 rounds, maybe 5 rounds, keep him at bay, and then just try to use his experience to take over the fight in the late rounds.
All right. Then we got a guy looking for win number 30 as well in the next fight. That's worth mentioning. Simon Zackenhuber. He's 29-1 at super middleweight, facing undefeated Hamza Shiraz, ranked number 2 at super middleweight. He's 23-0-1. That one is for the WBO World Super Middleweight title. And Zackenhuber is all the way down at number 36, with just a 1 loss, but more wins. Strength of schedule thing. Number 7 at super welterweight, Josh Kelly, also on the card, 18-1-1, facing number 47, who is Kaumin Agyarko, 18-0. That one's for the IBF World Super Welterweight title. And we got what looks like a mismatch. Rito Tsutsumi, he's just 4-0, facing Alvino Herrera Meza, who's 18-0-2 at Super Featherweight. And we a great name for a boxer, Jacob Bank, 19-0, win number 20. He's ranked number 7. Powell August is his opponent, another 18-0 guy with no draws. That's a 31 ranked fighter. That's super cool. That's pretty much it for that card. Good stuff, though. That's probably the best card of the week.
I see there's a fight in Philly on Saturday night, too, at the Fillmore. Honestly, from a guy that grew up in Philly, I don't think I've ever been to the Fillmore. I'm just taking a look at it real quick. Juan Rivera, 11-0 versus Derek Murray, 20-12. That's a 10-round fight. A female fight, Cherame Patricio, Natalia Francesca, Jacqueline McTammy, Colleen Davis, Christian Ortiz. I'm just looking at some of these things. Naheem Parker. Oh, Hotshot Hackett's on the card, baby. So I know Greg Hackett, Hotshot Hackett, mostly a career journeyman, but a funny ass dude, man. So obviously he's coming in as the opponent in this fight. His opponent Ali Ellis is 9-0-1, 3 knockouts, out of Philadelphia. Hotshot, Greg Hackett, who did win his second to last fight by unanimous decision. He's 4-25. So, you're not expecting, a lot out of him, but he's, a funny guy. Will give you a fight. Will make it entertaining. So he's always, and he's just a damn likable guy. That's a 6-rounder. Colby Madison. No, I'm looking at. Let's see. Ali Ellis, Greg Hackett, Timur Hermatov, Jalen Green, Justin Litz, Maurice Morris, William Briscoe. I actually know his father, Billy Briscoe, who was Gabe Rosado's trainer. He was the one that stopped the fight when Gabe Rosado was fighting Triple G that night. So William Briscoe is 6-1-1, fighting John Brewer 4-17. And then really the other fighters on the card, Odabab Malikov 3-0. He's fighting a guy with Teron Ward 6-20, and then Carlos Rivera Delgado 3-0 as well, fighting Deontay Williamson 4-9. So these are 2 young guys fighting 4-rounders that they want to get out there to keep building their records.
Right. And we probably need the sound effect of the guy talking about the monster truck races. Sunday, because we got 2 blockbuster cards on Sunday, one in New York, one in Australia. And, of course, one is Zuffa likes to buck the trend in every way, including what days they put on fights. But obviously there's going to be a time difference. So I don't think these will interfere with each other. We've got one on Amazon Prime Video and one on Paramount. So that's the same parent company for both. So they definitely probably won't step on each other's toes there. But Errol Spence Jr. in the main event in the Australia fight card. And he is 28-1. Obviously the big car accident putting a hold on his career and kind of changing his whole trajectory. But he's going up against another guy who's had some other difficulties in the ring over the course of his last 6 fights. Tim Tszyu, and he was really dominating and just beating the pants off everybody he faced until recently.
Yeah.
Just can't put it together.
Yeah, so I'm looking at that fight now. I'm on Tim Tszyu right now. So he looked like, can't miss prospect up until about 2 years ago when he fought Sebastian Fundora, 6'6", 154-pounder. And that fight, Tszyu really was doing well, except he took a real bad cut in his forehead, and he was bleeding bad the whole fight, and it affected his performance. And Fundora was smart to keep targeting it. and that ended up being a split decision for Fundora. After that, Tim Tszyu stepped up and he fought Bakram Murtazayev, who was 22-0, and he just massacred Tszyu. I mean, he dropped him 3 times in round 2, once in round 3, stop the fight. And that guy Murtazayev, he looked like he was about 3 weight classes bigger. So Tszyu came back, fought Joey Spencer, stopped him in the 4th round. Joey Spencer, good fighter, perennial journeyman. He goes back up to fight Fundora again, and Fundora this time really, really took it to him, really destroyed him. Dropped him in the 1st round, really beat him up, and they stopped it in the start of the 7th round. The corner stopped it. He's had 2 unanimous decisions after that. Anthony Velasquez was 18-0. Dennis Nurja was 20-0. So he's taken 2 guys' O's by unanimous decisions, and he's won every round on all 3 judges' cards. So has he figured something out? Has he gotten past that rough spot? We'll find out. Errol Spence. Now, Errol Spence was, like one of the top guys in the sport up until about 3 years ago when he ran into Terrence Crawford. And that was a fight that it was really a coin flip. Because Spence, tall, lanky, southpaw, good boxer, good power, and Crawford had the habit of sometimes being a slow starter. So the question was, if Spence could build up a lead, could Crawford close the gap? Crawford did not let that happen, and he had Spence down starting in the 2nd round, and he really beat the brakes off him and stopped that fight in the 9th round. But, I mean, he really, really beat the brakes off Errol Spence. So now, when, you had the car accident, which was, you had some pretty serious injuries from that. So now it's like you're coming from a bad loss, which can affect you mentally as well, and then injuries in a car accident. I don't want to put a prediction on this fight because you're looking at it's a hard fight to pick, and Rich, that's why I'm not putting a prediction. You'll bet it and then blame me. But
I like Spence by decision. I think
you like Spence? I can see that. It's who has more of less. Really, it's like that's what it is. Who has more of having less? That's how I see it.
That's a good way to word that. That is really good.
I made that up actually.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Tim Tszyu is fighting in his own backyard. Obviously, if it's close, he might get the decision. Hometown cooking. But Errol Spence is one of those fighters, when he wins a unanimous decision, he wins just about every round. And where a guy like Tszyu has really given you the blueprint from his last 3 losses of how to beat him. Errol Spence and his team will figure out a way to make it happen. He might not have the reach advantage like Fundora and the height advantage, but I think he has a speed advantage. And he knows that Tszyu can be thrown off of his game. And the only one to ever do it to Spence, retired as the best in the best, pound for pound, #1, basically, Terrence Crawford. So I just don't see Tim Tszyu at that level right now. He might have swung a couple unanimous decisions together himself, but that just means he probably won't get knocked out, I guess.
So it's been 3 years. Errol's been out, right? 3 years.
Yeah, it was almost exactly 3 years. That fight was July 29th of 2023.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
And you wonder about his lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because I've heard it's not ideal.
Wrong. Or change my pick. Change it.
And the other fight of interest on that card is Stephen Fulton out of Philadelphia, coming off a unanimous decision loss to Shaki Foster. it was also 3 years ago that he took a pretty bad beating, knockout loss to Inoue over in Japan. And then he came back with 2 decision wins. And then he had that decision loss to Shaki Foster, where he lost almost every round on all 3 cards. So he's fighting a fighter by the name of Liam Wilson, who's 18-3. And all 3 losses have been by knockouts. Fulton's not a big puncher. He lost to Emmanuel Navarrete. Avenged that loss by second round knockout. Can't say, and like I said, I know much about this guy. He's from Australia, so I mean, there obviously could be home cooking for him too. Liam Wilson is 18-3, 10 knockouts, and all 3 losses by knockout. I know what you get with Stephen Fulton. I mean, I saw him, Tom, where we went to see the fights that time outside of Philly. I saw him fight it was right after we went. I think we went in June. I think I went back in August, and Stephen Fulton was on the card. So he's been around a long time. It's just interesting to see, how much he has left.
Yeah. And the other big Sunday fight on Paramount Plus is a Zuffa fight card, and it's going to be from Madison Square Garden. It's not often that they stray outside the Apex, but now they're going to Madison Square Garden. One of the meccas, really, of boxing. And it's really a pretty decent card here. I mean,
really. I mean, looking at it right now, and wow, some really good fights on this card. I mean, your main event is Edgar Berlanga, 23-2. He's coming off a loss, which was to Hamza Shiraz, which was a 5th round knockout. Berlanga was down twice in that. I mean, he really got blasted in that fight. And his only loss prior to that was unanimous decision to Canelo Alvarez back in 2024. So, but other than that, Berlanga has 18 knockouts in his 23 wins. Stephen Butler is 38-5, 32 knockouts. He's the puncher, and all 5 losses by knockout. So this is a guy that looks to be a gunslinger. Either he's going to get you or you're going to get him. I'm looking at some of his losses right now. TKO. So that looks to be an interesting fight. I mean, I think you got to favor towards Berlanga in that one, unless he really lost a lot in that last fight. And then you have Richardson Higgins, who's 20-0, not a big puncher, only 8 knockouts. But his last fight was a stoppage over pretty talented George Kambosos Jr. That was just about a year ago. So he's coming off a year layoff. He's fighting one of your favorites, Rich, a 4-name guy, Ricardo Adnan Saliz Rodriguez. 24-2, 18 knockouts out of Mexico. I'm looking at his record. He fought in Vegas a couple years ago. Fought in Philly 2 years ago or a year ago against Ken Cruz, stoppage, second round. I know the one judge pretty well. So I mean, I thought at first he was fighting a lot of, in Mexico, but his last fight, which was back in March, was in Vegas. TKO over Jesus Sirocco. So this guy looks to be a pretty good puncher. So
right?
That'll be a pretty good fight here with Richardson Higgins, who is a good boxer. So you got a boxer puncher in that one. Jaleel Hackett, 12-1 against Sergey Derevchenko, who's been around for feels like 85 years now. 11-6, has never been stopped. I mean, this is a guy that took Triple G to the distance a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So that guy's got a George Chuvalo chin. We got Otto Wallin, pretty talented fighter.
He's also got his buddy Vladislav Serenko in the next fight, 22-1 at heavyweight, facing Otto Wallin, 38. Who I only know of because he lost to Tyson Fury.
Lost to Fury, and then he lost to Anthony Joshua by 5th-round stoppage a couple years later. So Otto Wallin is the one that cut Fury real bad in that fight. I mean, had Fury cut real bad. He's 28-3, 16 knockouts. His only stoppage loss was to Anthony Joshua. Vladislav Serenko is 22-1, 19 knockouts. So he's a pretty good puncher. He's coming off a unanimous decision loss. Can't say I know many of the people on his record, but you figure he's got 19 of his 22 wins are inside the distance. And then you round that out with a couple 8-rounders. Couple undefeated guy, Dominique Jafar Francis, 16-0 against Hector Andre Sosa. Arnold Gonzalez, 18-1 against Emiliano Moreno. Keshawn Davis, 11-0 against Mihai Nister, 8-0. That's somebody who's got to go. Troy Nash, 7-0-1, and Ethan Perez, 8-0-1. So somebody's except for the draw has to go.
Yeah, in the 2 fights there, back to back. So that should be a good card for New York. It's a big deal for
It says Philly versus. Oh wait, no, I'm lying to you. There's something also in Philly. It was right underneath it on BoxRec. The 2300 said Philly versus New York.
Yeah.
And a lot of names on this card. Let me just see if I know anybody. Holy shit. Well, some people are on there twice. So what is it, like a tournament?
Team boxing or something.
Okay. Oh, team boxing. Okay. I see Jesse. I'm just looking at the Philly guys right now. So I see Jesse Hart on there. I know him. Rasheen Brown. Okay, 41-6. Boy, he's been around a long time. A lot of fights. And he only going pro in 24. Holy shit! So he fought 47 times in 2 years. Holy shit! Nair Albright, who he had that fight on TV a couple years ago. I know Nair Albright. Steve Cunningham. That's got to be Steve Cunningham Jr.
There's 2 of them.
Yeah, different records. As they got the George Ford. Okay.
Did you name both of his sons Steven?
I don't think so.
Well, he's got 2 juniors on
there. Okay. Now the one on there, the second one that says 11-12, that is the Steve Cunningham, but his record is no 11-12. I mean, so it's got to be in this league.
Definitely does not look like him.
The second one, the one that says 11-12, that's Steve Cunningham because it says age 50 because he's born in 1976.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So these got to be like fights that count only on your record or something because Jesse Hart, I know Jesse Hart, and I'm looking at fights on there that it says he started in 2024, which is obviously not correct because I've been watching him fight for the last decade plus.
Yeah, this has to be a different. Here it is. TBL Pro. Team Boxing League Pro.
Yeah.
That's his record in team boxing. So there's a tab Box Pro on BoxRec. You click that and it comes up to his 30-9 with 1 draw. Big Pro is a whole different category, I guess. Yeah. But there's 2 Steve Cunninghams. The real one, I'm an imposter. No. A southpaw. USS Junior. So that is his son. That's kind of crazy, though. Like, it's bad enough that you're in your father's footsteps, but you got to take his nickname and put a junior after it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not necessarily bad that you're following your father's footsteps, but he's doing all right, 10-3 in the boxing team league. I don't know if he has a pro record too. Oh yeah, 3-0. 2 knockouts in the pros. Wait a second, though. This is fucking impossible. Oh, okay. What's this? I was gonna say, how can you have 2 pro debuts? But he fought 2 guys who were making their pro debuts. Yeah. Cunningham Jr. and Steve Cunningham fighting on the same card or the bracket, I guess. That'd be funny if they had to fight each other, father and son.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's your action all the way up until Sunday. Then it doesn't come along till Wednesday. It's nothing special. We did get a recap last week's UFC Fight Night 281. Then we're going to do our tornado warning and psychic vision. Then it's just news, and I got some Law and Order instead of my dad joke of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do our conspiracy theory of the week, new segment I'm going to do. And I've got 2 of them this week. One is kind of a joke, and then the other one is really serious. We've talked about it. But anyway, UFC 281 Fight Night in Oklahoma had a crazy main event. Dricus du Plessis and Kamaru Usman. And du Plessis, a lot of people were saying he was going to knock Usman out. I didn't see it. It came very close to that a few times. Usman was really wobbled and got his legs back under him and figured it out how to stay on his feet, but he just could not get past the output of du Plessis, the ability to land. He threw knees and punches. Usman really fucked up by not throwing leg kicks, I think, because he was landing a shitload of body kicks from a distance, front kicks and stuff like that. But he wasn't really attacking du Plessis' legs, which would have prevented him from getting a lot of those exchanges to go into his favor. Because he was able to plant on his lead leg, and Usman had the distance with the legs, but he just didn't use it. He couldn't figure it out, and he couldn't get inside long enough to throw any decent combinations against du Plessis on the feet. And he really didn't do very well wrestling him either. So it was kind of a washout for Usman. I had a parlay going into that if Usman won, I would have taken home $444 on DraftKings, but ended up right before that fight, they gave me this big fat cash out, $139. And I said, nope, I'm going to lay it on the line because I had a couple du Plessis bets, but they were all mixed in with other sports because by that time we're already into the main card. So I ended up winning a couple small scale bets on that card. Let me see if I can bring them up here. No, those are from earlier. But yeah, it was a decent card, and I think I put together Christian Leroy Duncan, Dricus du Plessis, by submission, Tommy Millen by knockout. That was nuts. But it was a great card. Du Plessis he looked a little bit better in the cardio department. He's steadily been improving in that since he gassed out a couple times in fights. But it's hard to believe, you think that he had some more stumbling blocks, but he's undefeated in the UFC. And Usman didn't really come close. But I mean, he's undefeated other than the guy. Chimaev. But he was just running through people for the longest time, and then Chimaev just basically crucified him, literally put him in the crucifix. But anyway, he looked really good. He looked in shape. Christian Leroy Duncan looked really good. So just this tendency to spin all the time kind of made it a little bit more difficult than it had to be over Jared Cannonier. He won by unanimous decision. Chase Hooper locked in the rear naked choke on Mitch Ramirez just 2 minutes and 15 seconds into their fight. He actually looked significantly worried going into that cage. I was worried he was going to lose that fight, and he was off weight he missed weight, so that was a big concern. And he just did what he does and weathered the early storm and took him down and choked him. Good stuff. Fatima Klein was doing so well against Tabitha Ritchie, she started showing off, sticking her tongue out for the camera and everything like that. I mean, she was literally just, adding insult to injury, basically, against Tabitha Ritchie. And, you know what Tabitha Ritchie's nickname is, right? Baby Shark.
Yeah.
And it's Shark Week. So in celebration, Fatima Klein just murdered a shark in the cage. A baby shark, nonetheless. Tabitha Ritchie had no chance, no reach, no real competitive level in that fight. Just couldn't do much. And then Tommy McMillan. I mean, what a nutcase. It's too bad Robert De Niro has gotten older because, the guy from Taxi Driver, Robert De Niro version would make a great Tommy McMillan. Scarface version. He's actually got what's his name? Scarface on his tattoos. Tommy, yeah, he is a wild guy, and he has no defense. He has no regard for defense. He doesn't give a shit. And Alberto Montes clocked him a few times, but he just walked right through it and ended up getting all the way to the third round before he ended up finishing him. But he broke Montes. He basically just smothered him with punches. And at the end of it, it was like he was just landing so many in a row. And it's not necessarily the power, it's the volume and the angles for McMillan. He's definitely going to go places. And he actually was getting interviewed, and he basically said he's like the third Diaz brother, which really made me laugh. But McMillan, yeah, it's very exciting. All chin. He's definitely got a solid chin, but he makes it count when he lands. That's the thing. Like if he gets clocked once, he's going to throw 3 punches to counteract that and land at least 2 of them. So he's got a good formula there. I could see him getting caught if he gets a little too wild against somebody a little bit more technical, but so far he's just mowing through people. Looks really good doing it. And then Jose Delgado definitely pulled off a little bit of an upset against Austin Bashi, winning by unanimous decision. But that was one of the ones that the experts came up with that was going to be an upset. And I predicted Jose to win that fight on most of my parlays. Jean-Paul Lebosiani was also an underdog, beating Suk Hyun Ko by unanimous decision. And I had the foresight to pick one or 2 parlays with Lebosiani, but that one pretty much ruined like 80% of what I had left at that point. Felipe Franco beating Levi Rodriguez by TKO. Franco was also an underdog, and most of the experts thought he would win. I went with him. That was a TKO in the second round, 1 minute and 40 seconds in. And before that, Ezra Elliott at catchweight beating Damian Anderson by unanimous decision. Alden Correa beating Stuart Nickel by unanimous decision. Richard Harris over Alvin Hines before that by TKO in the very first round. And Dione Barboza with the very quick work over Anna Melisano, a rear naked choke submission, 4 minutes and 4 seconds. I've never seen so many experts get a method of victory correct for a fight. Barboza was just an easy choice there. So anyway, what's next for Drikas, you think, Tom? You think he's going to get his rematch with Chimaev or go in a different direction?
Well, I wouldn't want to see it now.
Right.
But he's right at the top, but that old cliche, styles make fights. And I just don't see him improving that much against Chimaev. I mean, I think, like you said, Usman just was not what he used to be, put it that way. So, but it will be interesting because how about a third fight with the champ?
Strickland, yeah. But he wants Strickland. He wants that fight, I think. But yeah, no, that'll be tough. But he seems like he's improving a little bit with every fight. It's just Usman had just such solid grappling skills, and obviously figured out that Dricus has a kryptonite, and it's called the crucifix.
Yeah.
Just absolutely dominated him with that. I actually found it hard to believe he couldn't submit him. But anyway, let's see. I do have one other story before we can get to the tornado warning and psychic vision. Eddie Hearn is becoming a real thorn in the side of Dana White. His latest escapade here is Paulo Costa, trying to bring him to Matchroom. And of course, we know from the last time that he appeared before Donald Trump, Donald Trump complimented his looks and his fighting after this unbelievable comeback he had to win the fight by stoppage against a guy who was doing really well in the early going. And so he's really looking good. And you know, he's been the underdog in the last couple of fights he's won. And he somehow pulls and looks good doing it. So now he's signing a contract with Eddie Hearn, and one of Dana White's previous mortal enemies, Ariel Helwani, actually played a role in connecting Costa with Eddie Hearn. He gave him his number. Yeah, Hearn said, he called me and he said, I want your help. I've seen what you've been doing with Aspinall. I've seen what you've been doing with me and Gagne. I've seen what you've been saying about us, and I want you to represent me.
So Hearn is in the MMA world now?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's like management, you know, so he's like an Abdul Al-Aziz, you know. He's one of those type of people. So there are a number of close-knit managers. Like we used to deal with Ken Pavia of MMA agents, and he got on the bad side of Dana White, and he had to sell everything. But he kind of gave me, back in Vegas when I was living in Vegas, I met him in person, and he kind of gave me the rundown of like how the different managers work. There's a guy, Ed Soares, who's pretty famous in management circles. He speaks Brazilian, you know, so he gets a lot of the Brazilian fighters to sign with him. And then they also own LFA, Suarez and partner. So that's why.
Okay. So in other words, Paulo is still going to stay in the UFC. He'll just have Hearns negotiating for him.
Right, but if you notice, the people that Eddie Hearn is poaching, if you want to use the word, are strikers, right? So I'm sure because Zuffa Boxing isn't including the UFC fighters, a lot of them are looking at that as a betrayal, you know, because we could be making money in boxing, and they might decide when their contracts run out in the UFC, they're going to go with Eddie Hearn and box, because he's going to be able to provide them a lot more incentive as their manager and as their promoter. So I think that's the ultimate plan. He might not be saying it outright and announcing it to the world, but Aspinall especially, because he is real ticked off about the UFC situation, and he has been letting Eddie Hearn be his mouthpiece on the payment issue. It's basically stall until he gets the right offer for his next fight is what they're trying to do. But Costa doesn't like how the promotion is handling his contract, and he signed a 4-fight deal back in March of 2023 that was supposed to be worth $1 million per fight. 3 years later, it's almost at the end. He revealed in April he only has 1 fight left. And that was after the Mozart fight at UFC 327. And The UFC extended his contract by just 6 months. So he demanded that the UFC give him his final fight, but the promotion hasn't communicated with him and has simply told him to wait. So he went on Helwani's show and revealed that the UFC actually offered him a short notice fight against Ankalaev at this week's Fight Night. And that was a big story this week. He ended up turning it down, saying he's not interested in fighting again so soon. And he further claimed that the UFC did that knowing he would reject it, just so they could hear him say no. And he rejected the offer. He assured the UFC that he would be ready to fight in 8 weeks if they wanted. But they still haven't communicated with him after that. But for those reasons, he needs a proper representative, according to him, to deal with the UFC brass, which led him to reach out to Eddie, who was also managing Ian Gary. I didn't know that. But that's interesting. Ian Gary is a pretty good striker himself. But yeah, they want to extend his contract. So that basically sounds like a classic game that the UFC likes to play. I think they did that with Cody Covington. Colby Covington. They wouldn't give him his last fight. So he retired. So they want him to extend his contract, so they're not giving him a fight he's willing to take. And it's understandable. But yeah, now they got to come up with a really good contract, and they're going to have a big thorn in their side, having to negotiate it for him. That's great. So we'll see how that goes, but I would not be surprised at all if all three of those guys, Gary, Aspinall, and now Paulo Costa, end up in the boxing ring at some point once they have their final UFC fight. Right, so how about our tornado warning?
You know, so first of all, I have a interview for a new position at work tomorrow. They've been in the path of an F5 tornado the last few weeks. And when you tell an Italian to calm down and be patient, that doesn't work very well. When you hear something ironic, do you know the Italian word for patience?
No.
It actually, and this is super ironic, is the same last name as the fighter that we all know.
Pazienza.
Yeah, very
Yep.
funny, right? So, everything's been going on a round robin, and so finally this new person inherited me a few weeks ago, and hey, we're gonna make things better. I've been hearing that for a year, and I told the person that had me inherited before, you got to July 5th. That's the deadline, and I'm sorry that you inherited me on July 1st. Because you only got 4 days. And then on July 7th, it was like, I see you posted out yesterday. I did. Oh, well, we're going to get you help. I've been hearing it for a year now. I'm done. I think we're at the point of no return. So I got the interview tomorrow. The one manager of the department endorsed me, which is good. So I'm knocking on wood there because I haven't got the job yet and I'm already burning bridges. And I was talking to another supervisor who's also a very good friend of mine, and he goes, what do you think they'll do if you decide to take it? I said, well, what do I care? He's like, you think they'll try to keep you? I said, we're beyond that point. He's like, you think they'd offer you more money? I said, they'd have to offer me a shitload of money. Shitload. So we were home a couple weeks ago because of the All-Star game. They wanted to, not make people go to the city unnecessarily, which I think any day to the city is unnecessary. So we were home. So my last night at the gym was 2 weeks ago today, that Thursday. And I went in there and Hey, I went out there and I went out the way I was going to go out. I went out loud. Well, you know what? No, let me say it a different way. I did my workout the way I do my workout. I was loud. I was into it. I was jamming. And someone's like, "Oh, you're only," and I actually stopped and grabbed my jump rope at one point, started singing "Baby Got Back," and someone's like, "Oh, you're only doing that because you'll never see these people again." I'll do it anytime I fucking want. This is what the tornado does. The tornado takes a jump rope and sings "Baby Got Back." And then the one girl that I had become pretty good friends with that night, I saw her, but I kind of snuck out. And she messaged me later, and I said, "Listen," I said, I do things in true tornado fashion. When a tornado comes in, it comes in loud, unpredictable. It tears shit up. Then it leaves in general silence. It's just gone. It vanishes. That's kind of what I did. So last week I was working from home, and then so this week I'm back. I was back in the city for a couple of days, and I said, "You know what? Okay, now it's go time. You got to try this new spot. Like I still have my morning spot, but you got to have this new spot in the evening." So I, did the one detour, and the traffic wasn't too bad. Took me a few minutes longer, but not that long. And I got in there, and I'm going to say a word, and you guys it's going to floor you. I went in there shy. Me. Because, it's like I was in like a new environment, and I didn't want to burst in, but like, "Yo, the tornado's here." Because I don't know these people. And so I went in, I'm looking at all these new faces. I felt like a new kid in school. And it was a weird feeling, and then I saw, "Hey, wait, I knew that guy. Hey, that's the guy from the old spot. Hey, what's up?" And then I saw the manager, and I knew him. Next thing you know, I'm jumping rope yesterday, and I'm singing, and I'm being me again. And so as upset as I was, 2 months ago or a month ago when I found out, the first 2 nights haven't been bad. And maybe I'm not going to say it will. I'm not going to say it won't, but maybe it could work. So also this weekend, Tom, we're going to an autograph signing. It's very exciting, especially because of the fact that I'm the one doing the signing. So what we did was, I don't know if I showed you guys that shirt that I designed with the tornado on, and it says, "I came here to watch the Phillies drink beer and tornado things up." So
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I couldn't order them online. I didn't even try to order them online because I knew they would say a copyright. So I went to a local spot in this one mall by me that's all but dead. This mall is dead. And I've known the woman that does the T-shirt spot there for about 15 years. And I know her business is hurting right now, and her, with the lease and all that. And she did these shirts for me, and she was really cool about it. And she's done shirts for me in the past and for my mom. And I said, "You know what?" I said, "I want to help your business too, and I want to help myself. I'm not worried about money. I'm worried about the tornado being seen." And I said, "Maybe what I'll do is I'll set up an event at your place in the mall, and we'll do it where that day only people can get that shirt. I don't want money out of it. I don't want to take any of your money because I want you to make a living. Just give me a shirt. Just make me an extra shirt or a hat. I'm fine with that. I will come there and suit up, and I'll start getting the word out there, and I'll start just trying to, hey, man, come on out. I'll sign photos, and I want to have some fun with it. And, because that's what it's all about. Like, now I had a management company a couple weeks ago try to sign me. I don't know if I told you guys that. They reached out to me probably about 3 weeks ago, and they're like, buddy of mine's like, "Hey, I just signed this 1-year contract, and I'm going to be doing these events and all that." And they called me, and I was like, "Yeah, it sounds interesting, but you got to understand something. I'm really busy with work, and I'm in the middle of interviewing for another position where I'm going to have to train and be super busy. But also, do I really want someone to tell me where to go, what to do, who to see, what to say, where to be, that they could say like, oh, wait, you can't do that cancer walk for Hank Sisko's family because we have to approve it." Well, fuck you do. For me, it's not about the money. I know a lot of people are. It's about the money. I'm just a kid from the neighborhood, man. I'm just a kid from the neighborhood that turned what was 40 years ago a wrestling name, Tornado Tony, into a boxing name that ended up turning into like a character. And you saw those pictures from the wrestling matches last week. The wrestlers were coming getting photos with me. I got the one guy to break character in the ring. You know, that's having fun in life. And you know what? I say this every year. We only get so many trips around the sun. I always say it around my birthday because I'm about to make it out another circle, one more loop. And I believe memories are more important than money. I believe in having fun. I believe in doing what you want to do, going where you want to go, and being what you want to be. Hallelujah. Amen. That's your tornado warning of the week.
No, that's before the announcement. Stop. Yeah. Yeah, Philly. Interesting too. You know, we talked about that Fenway Park show. The same promotion was just in Philly, and now they're going to Boston. And it just like adds to all the other stuff we were talking about last week, maybe, and a couple weeks ago, I think more about all these deals being made between Boston and Philly sports teams.
I know.
It's like a Philly to Boston vibe going on right now. It's crazy. And the Red Sox just had a hell of a win streak last night. I think they got to 15 games.
They were all but dead a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I think it tied the franchise record, and it was the last time they did it was when Ted Williams was playing for them. So, just crazy the turnaround. But yeah, good stuff. Hoping you get the job, and just go in there in real confidence and see who you guys need. All right. How about our psychic vision? What are you seeing for our future here, Tom?
Well, this is a little more about life's philosophies, okay? And we're going to start in the fight world, and then we'll break it. We'll expand. We'll expand this tonight. It's about a month ago. Teddy Atlas was given a quick rundown of a fight with Boots Ennis and Zayas. And if you guys remember that fight, ended in the 7th round. And Teddy had an interesting point. And I think I'll cover that briefly, and then I'm going to expand on it. And this will be interactive because you guys can use your imagination and come up with a few examples to illustrate this point. And Teddy's point was, watching that fight, you have to have an identity as a fighter. Like, who are you? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And going into that fight, Teddy thought he predicted Boots would win, but he felt it would go longer because Zayas could use his legs, and he was a little more mobile. So he thought it would go on for a lot longer. Well, here comes Zayas, and he's just coming straight at Boots. Maybe not a good idea, because he was supposed to be the guy that was going to be moving. Just be mobile, box on the outside, use the jab, give angles, give good accurate, and try to keep that good accurate puncher off balance. Don't let him get set. Well, instead, Zayas decided he was going to be Jake LaMotta. And he was going to move in and just try to shove him back. Like someone, and this is so vintage, like someone told him, hey, this is really a movie. It's not a title fight. You're going to play Jake LaMotta tonight. Go ahead. Just charge right into him. And that's what happened. And you look at what happened. The wrong fight. He didn't play to his strength, because if you're a good puncher and as accurate as Boots Ennis is, what do you want? You want a guy that's going to stand in front of you that you can reach. You can find him. So to get to the point of this whole thing, Teddy's whole tip of the week is know your identity. Who are you? Are you a good counterpuncher? Can you control range? Can you give angles? Or do you want success going forward, going to the body, just wearing them down? Know who you are. You can't be Jake LaMotta one round and then Pernell Whitaker the next. You can't be Muhammad Ali one night and Joe Frazier the next. I mean, you know who you are and be consistent. So I thought about that. And I thought about a couple examples when guys would either go into the fight trying to not know their identity or change in the middle of the fight. Now, one of the examples I grew up on, and my father was telling me about this, go back to 1941, June of 1941 in the Polo Grounds. Joe Louis defending the heavyweight championship against a blown-up light heavyweight named Billy Conn, who weighed 170 pounds. Now, Joe Louis was only about 200, but, that was the normal heavyweight back in those days. Now, I'm sure all of you guys have heard this story, how Billy Conn, the crowd was shocked. This was not supposed to happen, what was happening. And Billy Conn was doing what we could call a Buster Douglas against Mike Tyson. And he was outboxing him. Joe knew he needed a knockout. It's the end of 12 rounds, and Conn goes back to his corner and says, I think I can knock him out. And the corner is, no, you're winning the fight. You're way ahead. You don't want to go toe-to-toe. That's Joe Louis.
Yeah.
Well, Billy Conn, when he woke up, he didn't make it through the 13th round, and he was quoted as saying, hey, why be Irish if you can't be thick? I guess that was the slang for stupid back in those days. Okay, so that was an example. And going over to MMA, and I thought about where we've seen that a couple times. Now, one, if we go back to the first Conor McGregor-Nate Diaz fight, when Conor was having great success in the first round, but by the second round, he started to get lit up on the feet. So at that point, he decided all of a sudden he's going to be a grappler and take Nate Diaz to the ground. And Nate Diaz just thought that was, well, thank you. Thank you for the present, and choked him out. Now, to be fair, maybe that's with an asterisk because Conor was getting desperate. But there's another 2-fight series in MMA that I think demonstrates it even more. We can go back to the Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell, both of those fights. Now, Chuck Liddell, in his prime, was no one to stand there and trade punches with. Tito Ortiz, in his prime, was a monster. I mean, that guy seemed to be, he was one of the early adapters of the weight gain. And I swear there were sometimes, I think Tito got in the cage 220. I've heard even 225 after weighing in at 205. And he was a monster at getting guys on the ground and just pounding them to death. But if you go back and you look at the highlights of both those fights, he thought he was going to go toe-to-toe with Chuck, with the disastrous results. So I guess that's the, and I'm sure you guys, feel free to come up with some other examples if you can think of any, but maybe that's a lot about life itself, that know what you're good at. Mm-hmm. Know what maybe you shouldn't be doing at times. And that doesn't mean you don't work on your weaknesses, but keep your identity and be consistent. And I think it's the key to success, both in the ring, in the cage, and in life itself. So, do you guys know of any time when you've seen someone just fight a wrong fight? And one's just coming to me now, Sugar Ray Leonard in the first fight with Roberto Duran.
Absolutely. Duran got to him.
Right. Where was his idea? Yeah. So what do you guys think?
Well, I have 2 fights, and I talk to my one friend about this time to time because he was a big Arturo Gatti fan. I took him to his first fight 20 years ago when Gatti was fighting for a title against Carlos Baldomir. And Gatti had 2 fights. Now, Gatti was Gatti. He would do things, and sometimes he would do the completely wrong thing. 2 fights where he fought the exact, completely wrong strategy. Go back to his fight with Mayweather. Now, was he going to beat Mayweather? Most likely not. His best chance to beat Mayweather was to fight him with basically a bone rib breaking body attack, kind of like what a Marcus Madonna did, like those guys. So get in there and just try to hit anything you can. Put glove on flesh, whether it's an arm, a shoulder, a bicep, whatever you can hit. Rough him up on the inside if you can. He tried to box with Mayweather. And he took a tremendous beating. Now he got hit with the shot that could have been on a break in the first round, and maybe it knocked him down, and maybe that kind of took him out of the fight. But after that, he just took an increasingly worse beating, and he fought the whole fight from the outside. He turns around, and a couple years later, he gets a fight with Carlos Baldomir in Atlantic City. And we go to this fight. Now, Baldomir was a guy, they were fighting at 147. Gotti was moving up to 147. And Baldomir was a guy that normally walked around about 185. He was a big, thick, strong dude. But he was also, very ponderous. He was very slow with his feet and his hands. Gotti tried to go toe-to-toe with this guy. We're like, no. That's the strategy you should have tried to fight Mayweather with. And you should have tried to box with Baldomir. But Gotti landed a few punches in that first round, like a couple good shots. The crowd went nuts. This guy had a cast iron chin. And I think he was like, you know what, shit, this guy's hittable. I can knock him out. And he ended up standing toe-to-toe with him, and he took a pretty good beating. Another fight I remember, because we've talked about it on the air, and we just mentioned his name about 10 minutes ago, was Vinny Pazienza, when he was fighting his buddy Dana Rosenblatt. He ain't so dangerous, right? But that fight, Dana Rosenblatt was a good, tall, well-schooled southpaw and very by the book. And Vinny was Vinny, just bouncing around and all that. So when they were fighting the first 3 rounds, Dana Rosenblatt's really beating the living hell out of him. He's got his nose broken. He's bleeding out of his nose. Both eyes are swollen. He's beating Vinny up pretty good. And Vinny in the 3rd round starts talking shit to him. And he's sticking his chin out, and he's being Vinny. And he's hitting his own head. And Dana Rosenblatt all of a sudden starts to get goaded into a shit-talking match. For a guy that never loses his cool, lost his cool. And he stood there just in front of Vinny long enough to walk into a right hand, and fight was over.
Rosensplat.
Yep.
Good point.
I met him there at Scully's thing there, his reunion. Good dude. But yeah, that's great points, Tom. I have 3 MMA examples. I'm going to go to the White House card for the first one. And then Steve Garcia. Okay, he was being a tactician. He was being very smart defensively. He was being very careful offensively. And then he decided he was going to brawl with Diego Lopez. And he lost the biggest fight of his life because he wasn't himself there. For that little bit of a round, and cost him the fight. And then the biggest one in recent memory that I could think of is Paddy Pimblett facing Justin Gaethje, where Paddy Pimblett said, fuck the grappling, fuck the wrestling, I'm going to stand toe-to-toe with one of the hardest hitting guys in the UFC and try to show that I can be a boxer. And guess what? Paddy Pimblett is not that great of a boxer and lost that fight. Pretty badly. He got smoked. He got bloodied, and he paid for it, and he knew it after the fight. At least he acknowledged it. A lot of the times when these fighters make these mistakes, they don't acknowledge it afterwards that they did.
Yeah, ego.
And then the third one, we go back a couple years, and that's the skyscraper, Stefan Struve against Mark Hunt, where Teddy Atlas brought this up for you, Tom. Teddy Atlas loves to say you got to fight tall when you're tall, right? And what was the mistake that Stefan Struve made? He underestimated the short guy and did not fight tall, did not use his reach properly, and he let Hunt get him against the cage and throw this Mike Tyson's punch-out hook right on the jaw. And I think he broke his jaw, too. It was quite the punch. And Mark Hunt was really good at that, getting on the inside and these big, thick legs, and he could put all of that weight right into a punch on the turn of a dime at his prime. And boy, he was perfectly timed on that one.
Yeah, the skyscraper collapsed. Oh. Well, okay, so what do you guys think? These are the examples are the highest levels of these sports, and you don't get there by being a complete idiot. And you have a brain trust with you. You watch the films. You get a strategy. Is it ego that I'm going to beat this guy at his own game to prove I'm better? Does that play a role sometimes, maybe? Or what is it? Because it's almost madness. It's almost craziness.
Well, yeah, ego definitely has a part to it, and it's almost like, I want to show you up. You don't think I can do whatever? Yeah, I'll stand right in front of you, and I'll beat you at your own game. And even like it's like a football team that has a great running back and says, you know what, I'm going to beat you in the air because you have the best defensive backs in the league, and I want to prove to you that I can beat you in the air. No, win the game how you got to win the game. Play your game. Win by your method of winning.
Right. Win. What brought you to the dance? Stay with that. And that's where it's up to the manager and the trainer to try to rein these guys in if they can do it.
I think, well, at least with the UFC, it becomes part of that whole phenomenon I've talked about on and on, and that's the whole put on a show attitude. You can't just win a fight in the UFC. You have to put on a show so you impress the bosses, so you get the best fight opportunities, and on and on and on. And it's not the same with boxing, but a lot of times with boxers, there's the same mentality for promoters. You have to be an exciting fighter, or else you're going to end up not getting the best matchup.
A very good point. Because people like rock'em sock'em action, and if you're a slick boxer or if you're a good grappler, maybe that's not that exciting.
Right. Yeah. And almost probably this is the 100th time I've mentioned this, but the biggest example in the UFC of that was John Fitch not wanting to sign his lifetime rights to a video game company. And the UFC threw him out, and there was a big fight legally over it, and they ended up bringing him back. And I think he had to sign the contract to come back, but he ended up coming back, and they got rid of him later. But he was one of the biggest proponents of the UFC lawsuits, the class action lawsuit that's just recently settled. So he's finally getting paid for that, but that went on forever. And like during his time, the UFC was so ruthless with the way they treated fighters, and it was literally like an unwritten rule: if you lost 3 times in a row, you were done. Like you would not fight again in that promotion. And it's not so much anymore. Some of the bigger names survive that, and they go 4 or 5 times in a row and still stay in the league, but. The bonus thing too with the UFC makes people change their way of thinking when it comes to strategy for fights. Because now you get a finish bonus. Now it's a little bit more than it ever was to get a regular bonus. Fight of the night comes in play. So you really have to fight differently than what you're used to. But I think it also is a little bit ego, especially when you look at like Ilya Topuria versus Justin Gaethje, and all the trash talk. And it wasn't just from Gaethje. Like Josh Hokett got into it with Topuria. So
Yeah, I remember that.
from all angles, and it broke him. To go in there and suggest he was going to knock him out in the first round, and he wasn't going to accept anything less, and then to get beat from pillar to post. I mean, that's one example too. I mean, it's not that if he was himself, he probably would have won that fight either. I mean, he was being too much of himself, and he had too much ego. So there's that kind of a outlook on the situation too that'll screw you. I do think a lot of the times it's just guys running out of things that they could do in the cage. So like Paddy Pimblett, he had submitted so many people, he probably was like, I'm due for a knockout. I think I would really like to knock somebody out and like maybe round out my record a little bit. They just get overconfident, so they're just like, oh, I'm going to show off, and I'm going to show how good my hands are. Because maybe he spent an extra 20 minutes a day on his striking that camp. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. It's the ego. It's the, I can do this better than you can do this type of mentality. And it's just the nature of the promotion itself with the UFC. They make fighters fight uncomfortably for extra pay. It's just that type of deal. But anyway, I don't have a dad joke this week, but I do have an Italian joke for Tony that I bet he's heard before. So there's an Italian guy walking down the street, and he's got 2 watermelons, one under each arm. Have you heard this one, Tony?
I don't know.
Yes, no, maybe so.
I don't know. I recognize some watermelons, but I'm waiting for the punchline.
All right, well, you've already given it to me, but anyway. So he's walking down the street with these 2 watermelons, and somebody stops him, and he says, "Sir, could you tell me what time it is?" So the guy just puffs and puffs, and he says, "All right." So he puts one watermelon down slowly, the right hand, and then he puts the other one down on the street with the left hand on the sidewalk. I mean, and he puts both arms up, and he goes, "I don't know."
Yeah, that's an Italian for you.
Yeah, speaking with his hands. But anyway, yeah, I saw that on a YouTube video. I was laughing. That was a good one. But you got to do it in an Italian accent. I didn't do a good job.
How the fuck do I know?
Anyway, we're going to talk about one of these stories I had set aside on Canelo Alvarez, talking about his retirement. We're going to save that for next week because I have 2 stories here. Well, first I've got to do the conspiracy of the week. That's my new thing instead of a joke. I got 2 conspiracies this week we're going to briefly discuss. Number 1 is Conor McGregor. There's actually a half-series suggestion that the reason he lost that fight is because of the fog effect in the cage before the fight. Now, this is right up there with the Deontay Wilder costume excuse. My costume is too heavy. But it's not McGregor that brought it up. It was actually John Anik, one of the analysts, talking about all the different people that have come out and said Conor was injured before the fight. And he said, who knows, anything could have happened. It could have been the fog effect. And I think he was half joking, but it has actually been a factor before. It's made the cage a little bit slippery, the mat, when they do all that fog, because it's a condensation effect, so, there's temperature changes, and of course that creates condensation. So I do remember specifically the fog coming out when he was coming into the cage and doing his little dance around the cage before facing off with Holloway. And I think the trash talk before the fight was a little bit more pronounced than it was like once they both got into the cage. It didn't really seem like they were pissed at each other at all. It looked more than anything like Conor was worried. He was worried whether he was going to be able to perform the way he used to be able to. And it was like he came to a revelation on the way to the cage. That's why he was so nervous that he tripped out of his shoes. And that revelation was that I have lost a lot in this time off. Lost multiple steps in the levels of the game. But anyway, so that was the conspiracy theory. I thought was kind of funny. This one's a little bit more serious. We remember that we talked about this a few months ago. Jai Opatai got stripped of his title from the IBF, and now he sued the IBF over the title stripping, and he alleges a literal conspiracy to punish him for signing with Zuffa. So that's a big deal, and I'm sure that the UFC connected him to his lawyers on this because they want him to set the precedent that will help their organization in the long run. So I'm sure they're at least assisting him with the legal fees if they haven't really set him up directly with the lawyers.
Makes sense.
Ironically, it's a 123 paragraph complaint. 123. 123 combo. Filed on July 14th in the U.S. District Court of Nevada. And he alleges the IBF conspired with other sanctioning bodies and prominent figures in the sport to retaliate against him for joining Zuffa Boxing and to deter other fighters from following suit. And of course, they start right off with a bang in the lawsuit paperwork. They say corruption, backroom dealings, and industry-wide collusion in the sport of boxing sound like movie cliches, but unfortunately for world champion and plaintiff Jai Opatai, they are very real. Great first line for legal filing. So Opatai wants to be reinstated as IBF Cruiserweight champ. Wants damages, attorney fees, and costs, and an injunction preventing the sanctioning body from naming a new cruiserweight champ while the litigation is pending. And that's the key, because you have to kind of put handcuffs on that approach right away. That's kind of what they did to me, even though I was telling the truth in the Zions case. They got an injunction right away, which I later got an email confirming that they did that just because they knew they could get it before I could even react, and they didn't have a chance of it being defended by a legitimate lawyer. If I got a legitimate lawyer, they knew they would get thrown out. But anyway, so Opatai signed with Zuffa in January. He was scheduled to make his promotional debut against Brandon Glanton on March 8th. So that was for the Zuffa World Cruiserweight Championship. That's what really pissed off the IBF. And then they denied this request to sanction the bout. And then they ultimately approved it after allegedly receiving reassurance that Zuffa Boxing will not bill or otherwise promote the bout as a unification. And then any belt awarded will be characterized as a trophy or token of recognition. And then 2 days before the fight, the IBF said they're not going to sanction the contest after it became apparent to the sanctioning body that it would still be for the Zuffa World Cruiserweight Championship. And Opatai went ahead with the fight and got stripped. So basically says the IBF was disingenuous with that whole process, and that was a scheme to inflict the maximum amount of reputational and financial harm on him in retaliation for signing with Zuffa. So they allege the conspiracy actually involved 3 other major sanctioning bodies, believe it or not, WBA, WBC, and WBO. So this is a great case for Zuffa to back him on, because this really puts a hurting on all the competition out there and the roadblocks to Zuffa becoming another type of monopoly in the industry. So anyway, yeah, there's a whole big story on this, and we'll be following that. I think that's a great case. As much as I don't like some of the stuff that Dana does and the whole approach to trying to monopolize boxing and trying to alienate some of the fighter rights situations with the Ali Act. I do like the fact that they are doing things differently and attracting fighters because they're willing to go out on a limb and change the formula a little bit. And this is a big one, you know. If they're going to coexist with these other leagues, they got to be able to protect their legal interests. And speaking of that, this next segment is inspired by Law and Order. So we got the theme music here. All right. Well, you know, from watching Law and Order, the most frequent stories on Law and Order are about murder. And this week we had a murder most foul, but it is a manslaughter case for some reason. I posted this on my Facebook. I was so pissed about it. A young boxer who just lost her very first fight, got killed at 26 years old in what they're calling an alleged road rage incident. Hannah Rapp. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but
I did.
This just does not make any sense to me as this person who has followed the law for years. Not so much criminal stuff, obviously a lot of civil stuff I was personally involved in. But yeah, just doesn't make any sense. If you read this article from TMZ, where I first found out about it, Rapp was killed Saturday afternoon after authorities say Charles Medina passed her before stopping his vehicle and intentionally reversing, striking Rapp. And he was later arrested and charged with manslaughter. Okay, that to me sounds like murder. And then if you want to bring in the temporary insanity defense, then, you know, you do that for murder, not manslaughter. This is not accidental if he intentionally backed up to hit her. It makes no sense. You know, did he think he clipped her? Maybe, and then he backed up? Maybe then it would be manslaughter. If it was, but they're calling it a road rage incident. That makes no sense. Okay, it should be murder. And then if you really want to say that you didn't intentionally do it, you were temporarily insane, then you just use that defense. But I just don't get why anybody would charge this as manslaughter. Rapp was a very big up-and-coming prospect. She was an Indiana track athlete at Purdue University before moving to College Station, where she turned pro in 2024 while working full-time as a fire and life safety inspector at Texas A&M University. She entered last month's WC women's featherweight title fight against Tiara Brown with an 8-0-1 record and lost by unanimous decision. And yeah, unreal. Born in 1999 when I graduated college. President of the WBC, Mauricio Suleiman, also said the boxing community is heartbroken by the loss of an exceptional boxer and an invaluable member of our boxing family. And supposedly the investigation is ongoing, but I don't know if I've ever heard of a charge upgraded from manslaughter to murder, but it's definitely is very concerning to me. I also saw an article today written on the 20th on ESPN, and it says the man arrested for the manslaughter charge in the death of Hannah Rapp has a lengthy arrest history dating back more than a decade, including reckless driving and hit and run. And ESPN got a hold of these records, and police said Rapp, 26, died Saturday after being struck by a vehicle while riding her bicycle on a rural road south of College Station, Texas. Local news reports said Rapp was riding alongside her boyfriend, Will Valelis, at the time. Surprised the boyfriend didn't get charged with murder for killing the dude that hit her. But he didn't, obviously. Brazos County jail records list the arrest of Charles Eric Medina, 31, for manslaughter. Public records show Medina's address about 2 miles from where the incident occurred. Medina's arrest history began in 2012 when the sheriff's office arrested him for reckless driving and evading arrest with a vehicle. Medina pleaded guilty in both cases. They arrested him again for reckless driving in 2014 for hit and run in 2020, and ESPN was unable to determine how those cases were resolved. But before Saturday's arrest, authorities most recently arrested Medina for deadly conduct and the discharge of a firearm in 2024, and then evading arrest again in 2025. It's ridiculous. I've actually seen that a lot here in Maine too. Not so much for car accidents and stuff, but I got access to the court system because I'm going to be doing a podcast on local news here in Western Maine with a guy that has a lot of media experience. And it's just like a 15-minute-a-week report. So I was looking in through the court cases and trying to see like who was brought up certain charges in the system recently. And I checked like the major ones like grand theft and breaking and entering and sexual assault. And every one of these guys that were recently charged with this has a fucking lengthy criminal record for all the same shit. And it's like, and then there was another guy that shot up the sheriff's office, the jail, the sheriff's jail. And he obviously had problems from when he was in jail that he was pissed about. So not only are these guys all going to jail all the time and getting busted repeatedly, but they're having issues with the way they were treated in jail. And it's not deterring them from being repeat offenders. So what the fuck is the jail doing, you wonder? They didn't get this guy out. They definitely didn't reform him, and he's getting arrested for all the same shit, and he's clearly dangerous. But they have no impetus to get him off the street and keep him there. Keep him somewhere where he's not going to be a danger to society. And I still cannot wrap my head around why this guy is being charged with manslaughter. There's nothing in any article I found that explains that. And our second Law and Order story, Andrew and Tristan Tate. Andrew Tate, more known for his combat sports than Tristan, but they were both in Florida to attend an a bare knuckle boxing event. One of the competitors with BKFC, IBA bare knuckle 6 was supposed to take place Saturday afternoon in downtown South Florida. And they ended up arresting Andrew and Tristan. They were supposed to be hosting this show, bare knuckle show. And Andrew Tate obviously has some kickboxing experience. He wanted to fight Jake Paul forever. And then he got trounced in his debut at Misfits Boxing. And he's a big fan of the cigars. So that might have something to do with his lack of cardio that I think he suffered from in that fight. But anyway,
cigars.
Yeah. So anyway, both brothers have been in legal troubles for years. They spent some months in a Romanian prison in 2023, and they were indicted on sex trafficking charges in Romania. But they somehow got to the United States in early 2025, and then they were insisting they were innocent after their plane landed in Fort Lauderdale. Then in early April, an attorney involved in a civil suit with the brothers told us they were in the crosshairs of a federal investigation. And then on top of this, they also have issues in the United Kingdom where 21 charges have been authorized against them, 11 for Andrew and 10 for Tristan. And at the time this article was published, they say they don't know if anything if there's anything this case has to do with the UK case, but it was directly related to that extradite to the UK. So that's what happens when you're a couple criminal scumbags. You don't get to fly all over the world and act like bigwigs anymore. Directly to jail. So yeah, that's probably going to be a big deal for them. I don't know if it's going to be like what's his name there from WikiLeaks, Assange. I don't know if he's going to be the brothers are going to be hanging out in the UK embassy or anything. But so I think they're probably going to be doing some more serious jail time over this. It's pretty serious stuff. But yeah, they got money for lawyers, but I think this is bigger than they're prepared for. But anyway, that's the news, and that's the show.
All right, I got to get to bed. I got to get up at 5 a.m. to go work out.
All right, guys. Let's enjoy the fights, as always.
I'm going to make some money off them, too. Till next week, thanks for stopping by.